Hi guys, welcome to M&D Made Simple. I'm your host, Coach Alexander. I'm so glad you've joined me today. We're going to be looking at a very important topic, the strategic planning process model. Okay, now I'm going to tell you one thing. Every M&D professional should know what goes into the planning process of all projects and programs. So in case you're here for the very first time, my name is Coach Alexander. I've been doing this for over 10 years now. I've enjoyed every bit of it. I'm a specialist in M&D and also project management. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this course, there's a course that is being hosted on Udemy. It's called the Logical Framework Approach in Project Management. The reason why I'm showing you this is because it's actually linked to the strategic management, strategic planning process. And the log frame, guys, is the key ingredient to effective M&D implementation. So in case you haven't enrolled in this course, please enroll in this course. And if you've not subscribed to this channel, please do to subscribe to this channel, because on a regular basis, I post updates in relation to monitoring and evaluation. It's very important you watch this video from start to finish, and it's not even going to be a long video, because I'm just going to be focusing on one particular slide, and we're going to be looking at how the cycle is when it comes to strategic planning. Okay, so for starters, what is strategic planning? Okay, I want to tell you one thing. Let's look at our very own lives for 1 second. When we were young, and I'm sure for those of you who are adults now, when we were young, in our teens, we had plans. Some of you may have plans to become a doctor, engineer, accountant, whatever career path you may have wanted to become, but it was all part of the plans you wanted to do. So now, having a plan is one thing, but having it what can I say, having that plan come into reality is another. So in order for you to realize your goals, your objectives of what you want to be, okay, you have it written down in a plan. And it's similar with organizations around the world. They'll usually take this so seriously that they'll put it on paper, explaining what they want to achieve after 5 years, after 10 years, how they are going to achieve it, what resources they need, who will be involved, and so on and so forth. So strategic planning is a process in which organization leaders determine their vision for the future, as well as identify their goals and objectives for the organization. So essentially what this is telling us is what I already explained to you. You had a plan that you wanted to be a doctor. So the question is, how are you going to achieve your goal, your vision, your objective of becoming a doctor? One, you need to dedicate resources and time in studying the doctorate. Okay, getting the doctorate degree, you have to dedicate some time and effort. And this is also similar to what we see in these big organizations. Let's say they want to, an organization has a goal of becoming the leading company in terms of digital technology. It has to be written down on pen and paper how they will achieve those goals. So now it's very important that as M&D professionals, and if you're not an M&D professional, there's no problem at all. If you're in the project management field, this is a key ingredient for you, because you need to know what actually goes in the planning cycle. So if you look at what's in front of you, there are six parts that are required when it comes to actual strategic planning. Okay, and this is so important, because if you don't have a plan, you're really planning to fail. So it's always important, even in your personal life, that you have some kind of roadmap of where you want to be in a number of years. So the first thing is understand the global environment and emerging trends. Now, what this is essentially saying is that when you do the strategic planning process, you need to realize that you are not operating in isolation. There are different players that are around you. Okay, that is the external environment, and that external environment can affect the way you achieve your goals. I'll give you an example. Most of these companies are running under, all companies around the world are regulated by an authority, which is the government. So that government sets policies on how businesses should behave. So you need to make sure that you understand this clearly. You know in which policy environment you are operating in, so that you can not so that whatever you are doing is not in conflict. Another issue is the economic environment is also good for you to understand and try to fully see how this will promote your business or organization, because by doing that, then it will feed into the next stage, which is now assessing the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So essentially what you're doing here is you undertake a SWOT analysis. Now, mind you, starting from step 1 to 6, you need to involve all the relevant stakeholders that can help in the who are affected or who can affect the success of your organization. So you need to assess the strengths. What strengths does your organization have? Okay, that can make you achieve some of your goals and objectives. Okay, some strengths could be that you have a lot of highly qualified staff. Okay, other strengths could be that you have government support. All right, so those are some of the things that you need to assess. What are your weaknesses? All right, it's always good to know your weaknesses, because it will essentially mean that you really understand your limitations. You cannot tell people that you can achieve a target when deep inside yourself you know you can't, because you have a certain weakness. So you have to identify that weakness, so that even as you are doing the planning, you know how you can work around things. What are the opportunities? What are the threats? I mentioned that sometimes the policy environment, when it comes to threats, sometimes the policy environment can be in conflict with what your organization aims to achieve. So what can you do to try and align yourselves to what is prevalent around you? So now another thing is the validation and modification of the organization's vision and mission. So in case your organization has just created their first strategy, there will be no need to modify, because that's your very first strategy. But if you are just updating, if you are just reviewing, revising yours, or creating a new strategy, then there will be need for modification, depending on how things, as an organization, what strategic direction now you're taking. Because after 5 years or even after 3 years, a lot of changes take place, and management and the leadership may deem it fit that probably they need to take a new approach. The next stage is to develop goals, strategies, and action. Okay, so now I need to ask you this question. What is the difference between a goal and a strategy? A goal is a long-term objective or endeavor that you want to see. Okay, goals could be, let's say you want to see, I like to use this example, a world free from poverty and injustice. Okay, those are some of the long-term goals. But the strategy does not just tell you the goal, but it tells you how are you going to get to that point you want to get to. So really, all you have to be laying down, all you have to be writing down at this stage is the activities that you do in order to get to where you want to go. So for example, if we go back to the example of the doctor, you say you want to be a medical doctor, but how are you going to get to that? How are you going to get to that level? So you lay down the strategies. You mentioned that, okay, I'll study at a university, I'll work part-time in order to raise money for school fees, I'll get mentors to mentor me on how I can become a medical doctor. So those are the strategies. And then the actions are the actual activities that you do, that you've lined up in order to realize your endeavor. So now, this is where at this stage, at stage 4, that is the key area of interest, especially for us monitoring and evaluation professionals, because we want to see, I mean, that is where exactly the log frame comes in. At this stage, this is where we develop the actual logical framework. Then the next stage is the execution and managing the strategy actions. Okay, so the execution is now basically you are implementing what you have planned. And I must mention, guys, whatever you plan, when it comes to implementation, it won't always be exact, because that's basically how life is. Your plans will not always be implemented exactly the way you want it, because a lot of things come into play. I'll give you an example. Let's go back to the medical doctor story. If you want to be a medical doctor, you say that in order to raise money for fees, you need a part-time job. But we all know that getting a part-time job today is hard. And to get that part-time job, it might require a lot of your time, and sometimes, because by the time you find that job you are looking for, the semester at the university may have already started, and you don't have money to pay the first installment of fees. So you can see that what you have planned on paper doesn't always happen the way you want it to be, because of so many external factors. Some of them you don't have any control over. Then the final stage is the assessment. So the assessment is now where you actually conduct the evaluation to determine whether indeed you achieved your goals, and if you didn't achieve your goals, you make adjustments so that you can better achieve them in the next strategic phase. So as you can see, it's a cycle. It starts from step 1 going to step 6 when you do the evaluation, and then the findings from that evaluation will feed into the next strategic planning phase. Now I want to mention this to all of you. Don't even get confused. If you look at this cycle, other sources of information or literature will call this the planning cycle. Others will call it the strategic planning cycle. They are one and the same thing. They are similar because they all follow the same process. And for us M&D professionals, what is really critical for us is to participate in the development of this log frame at this stage, which is at stage 4, because that's where you have the objective and goals. And then in addition, you also have the indicators which need to be put in there. In this cycle, you don't necessarily have to wait until step 6 to do the assessment. there is what is known as a midterm evaluation. It can be done midway implementation of the project. So I want to thank you so much for being part of this presentation. If you have any questions for me, please do not hesitate to write. I've been your host, Coach Alexander, and see you on the other side. Bye.